bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? How you doing? Today's Monday, November 1st, 2021. 304 days into the new year. Only 61 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. A total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful in here. Yeah, it is. It's nice. How you doing? I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and UnX, the X Network, premiering tonight. The UnX Network. Everybody out there, how you doing? Race Hobbs. I want to thank Margie K. Here we go. It's the start of a new era, and we're going to do it tonight with very special guest, John Warner IV. John Warner IV joins us for the first time. He is here to discuss hidden history, the global elite, and UFOs. We're going to be doing all of that tonight with John. I am so excited about this show. What a way to kick things off on NX. Tomorrow night, director Roger R. Richards is here to announce his new film. It is called The Observers. And we've got the launch date. We've got all the background on the movie, his vision for this film, major release coming up this month in November. We've got two major films releasing this month, The Observers and Extraordinary, The Revelations. And I'm very honored to be a part of both films. And, of course, narrating Extraordinary, the Revelations with J3 Films. And The Observers, not only Roger Richards producing this, but I was brought on as a producer, and I get to actually say a few things on screen, too, as well. We've got a great cast. All of that is tomorrow night with Roger R. Richards. Wednesday night, Paola Harris is back with us, and we are going to discuss the international view of disclosure and what is going on all around the world. She has her conference coming up this month, November 12th through the 14th. I will be at that conference. Again, an international take on things is what the conference is all about, and that conference is coming up. I'm going to be there. And then Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Now, the Starworks, Paula's conference, Starworks USA, UFOs, All Above and Beyond, is November 12th through the 14th. It's in Laughlin, Nevada at the Aquarius Hotel and Casino. And I'm going to be there. We're going to do Fade to Black Live on stage. That's going to be great. And lots of cool things going on, plus Jacques Vallée and Paul Hynek and Grant Cameron, Colin Andrews and Jaime Musan, and a bunch of other amazing speakers and presenters are going to be there. A really nice gala dinner is going to go down. Oh, I've got to pick out the right. I need colors. I need the right colors for the gala. Yeah, tickets and info are over at starworksusa.com. You can follow me. The links are right below. You can just click on Starworks, and we'll see you in Laughlin. All right. Everybody can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, and hashtag F2B on Twitter. I tweeted out earlier today into the sandbox, Paranormal Radio just released the 2021 the Paranormal Top 13 shows. And I'm very happy. I love this audience and your support, because we came in at number 2. Number 1, congratulations to Clyde Lewis. And number 3, Coast to Coast AM with George and Ori. Congratulations on that, George. And it's pretty cool. Now, I couldn't get the 13 into Twitter. It was too much. So I had to do the Paranormal Top 10. So there were another few shows down at the bottom of that list that did make it into Twitter. But if you want to see the full list, head over to our Facebook company page, and you'll see it over there as well. And I'll put up the links to the full article. I think it's Radio News or one of those radio websites that list all the breaking news in the world of broadcast and media. All right. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Fadernauts are the best. All right. Now, I'm going to get to the breaking news. And I'm going to start with this. There are issues with the toilet on board SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule. Big issues. And it's going to leave a group of astronauts, 4, without a bathroom when they return back to Earth. That's right. And it takes a long time. You leave the ISS, you get on the Crew Dragon, you got to make a couple of cracks around, a couple of orbits. It takes hours for that re-entry, and you need a bathroom, but they don't have one. That's right. So what are they going to do? They're going to wear undergarments. That's right. Adult diapers. SpaceX first discovered an issue with the spacecraft's toilet last month while inspecting a different Crew Dragon capsule. The company found out that a tube used to funnel urine into a storage tank came unglued. I'm not making any of this up. And it was causing a pretty leaky mess hidden beneath the capsule's floor. Ew. Right? Right. We're all on the same page, right? And then this article came out today, this press release, that on board the ISS, they were able to grow green chili peppers in space. And so to celebrate, all of the astronauts ate tacos without a toilet. I'm just saying. I'm going to leave that right there. All right. Now, also, in more SpaceX, Tesla, and Elon news, Elon Musk has offered to sell some of his Tesla stock right now, quote, according to him, if the United Nations can prove that $6 billion will solve world hunger. His comments came after UN World Food Program, the WFP director David Beasley, challenged the ultra-wealthy, and in particular the world's 2 richest men, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. And he said, and I quote, "Step up now on a one-time basis," end quote, to help solve world hunger. So yesterday on Twitter, Elon posted, and I quote, I'm going to do a lot of quotes tonight, and I quote, "If WFP can describe on this Twitter thread exactly how $6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell Tesla stock right now and do it," end quote. Wow. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Anthony Kiedis. Love me some Kiedis. 58 years old. Def Leppard's drummer, probably, in my opinion, the world's best one-armed drummer. I'm not kidding. Rick Allen today is 58 years old. Sophie B. Hawkins today is 57. Years ago, when she had that hit, Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover, and that hit was, number one. And I was doing some stuff. I was working at Elisa's, and she needed some help, and she called in, and it turned out we were neighbors in Sherman Oaks. It was hilarious. I haven't talked to her in many years, but today she's 57. Bo Bice. Remember Bo Bice? Yeah, he had those pipes. He came in number 2. He came in number 2. Bo Bice today is 46 years old. Our dead guy's birthday today is Jim Steinman, 1947 to 2021. Died at the age of 73. Jim, he was a composer, a lyricist, a record producer, and a playwright. He also worked as an arranger, a pianist, and a singer. But he is best known for his partnership with Meat Loaf. He wrote all of Meat Loaf's Bat Out of Hell, one of the best-selling albums in history, and Bat Out of Hell Part 2, Back into Hell, and producing albums for Bonnie Tyler. His most successful chart singles include Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart, Jim Steinman, Air Supply's Making Love Out of Nothing at All, Jim Steinman, Meat Loaf's I'd Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That, Jim Steinman. Happy birthday, Jim Steinman. On this day in history, OTD 1952. The United States detonates the world's first thermonuclear weapon, the hydrogen bomb, on Eniwetok Atoll in the Pacific on this day in 1952. Fate or fact? Check this one out. Love this. According to Greek mythology, humans once had 2 heads, 4 arms, and 4 legs. That's right. And then Zeus stepped in and decided to split humans in half. That's right. True story. There you go. That's your fate or fact. I never knew that. Found that out today. And it's so great when I'm researching subjects and, UFOs and UAPs and Bigfoot, and I'm doing my research all day long, and I stumble into humans once had 2 heads. And, you're just like, that's a fate or fact right there. Zeus. All right. River Moon Coffee. Man, I just hit River Moon Coffee 3 times. 3 times. I had a friend, Lisa Reed, came over to the house yesterday, and one of my oldest friends in the world, and I love her to death. She's great. And helped me hand out candy and for Halloween. And then we were doing the UNX Network's, premiere party. Pre-premiere party. It was a premiere party. Did that last night. I said, hey, you got to come in and do the show with me. She said, no. I said, yeah. So we set her up a microphone, got the headset, rolled in a chair, and she sat right here. But this is the deal. I'm not making this up. So before she goes, where's my River Moon coffee? I was like, it's right here. Want a cup? Yeah, I'm going live on the air. I need my River Moon coffee. So, that happened yesterday. That was cool. All right. River Moon Coffee, rivermoonwellness.com. The links are right below. You can go and head over to River Moon Wellness. All of our really cool products are over there. Fade to Black, Black Moon. All of the stuff you need is right there. Okay. John Warner's on the show tonight. John Warner the Fourth. and been following John for a long time. And I'm not going to discuss this with him tonight, but we're the two of us are part of a little secret email group thing, and we hang out and share ideas there. And he's one of them. And I follow the thread, and I follow the comments, and the insight. There's a lot of science and geopolitics and things that go down there centrally around the UFO issue, UAPs, propulsion systems. It's a very interesting group of people. And I've followed John for a long time. And his pedigree, and we're going to talk about all of that in a few minutes when he comes on the show. But it got me thinking. And there is of course we have the planet, but especially what's going on right now, and we take a really hard look at corporate America and Washington, D.C., and the military industrial complex, the MIC, and the implications of UAPs and UFOs and ET and contact and who knows what, and you really take a hard look at that, and it's always been from our view, the UFO community, been researching this and staying on top of this and paperwork and trails and documents and Freedom of Information Act and whistleblowers and leaks and videos and, man, we've been doing this for a long time. But Washington's take and the corporate take has always been our revelations, what we have revealed. Washington has ever been our friend, ever. They have fought us on the UFO subject since 1947, and that has been painfully clear and obvious. Things have changed for the last 4 years. And I think we've kind of lost sight of some of the things that have been said, especially recently. I think we've kind of lost sight of that because we are in a crazy news cycle. Things are being revealed every single day, not only with UFO, but it's everything in society, everything in the world, all world events. It is by the second updated, and this news, I've talked about this many times on the show, is flooding into us from all angles, and we're doing everything we can to keep up with the information. Information comes at us from all angles, and it doesn't matter if it's education, health, employment, money, banking, military, politics, elections, the weather, it's just sports, fashion, entertainment, just coming at you constantly. You still have a life. You have a family. You have to eat. You have to do things. Meanwhile, squeeze everything else in. How do you have time to watch a movie? How do you have time to do anything these days when all of this information is coming at you? And I didn't even mention social media. And it got me to thinking. Last week, I had mentioned NASA's Bill Nelson and his recent 10-minute disclosure conversation that he had with the University of Virginia back on October 19th. Today is November 1st. This was less than 2 weeks ago. This is fresh. And those 10 minutes were some of the most compelling words I have heard recently when it comes to the ET, UFO, UAP question that has been front and center for the last 4 years. But we have forgotten. I have, and if I have, I know you have. We have forgotten about the long list of names out of Washington, D.C. that have also gone on the record about it. And I'm not talking about Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon. No, I'm not. So much has happened, and so many have opened up about UFOs that with the current climate of this news cycle that I keep talking about, well, sometimes things just get lost in the mix. They do. So it's time for a little bit of a refresher course. Let me remind you of a few things that have happened recently. This past June, Bill Clinton, was asked about the military's recent encounters with mysterious craft, and Bill brought up the size of the universe and the high probability of life existing out there. Then right after that, we got Barack Obama. He spoke about the implications of recent UAP incidents involving ET. Right? He was like, maybe, right? And I want you to remember something. Both Clinton and Obama retain access to top-level intelligence briefings. So what is it that they know? What is it that they knew going into this, and now the intelligence briefings are coming out? They get to look at that, and they make these statements. It makes you wonder. It's never been like this before. Now, recently, former CIA Director John Brennan speculated that the objects might, and I quote, I'm going to do a lot of quotes here, and I quote, he said, they constitute a different form of life. And he continued with, it's a bit presumptuous and arrogant for us to believe that there's no other life form anywhere in the entire universe, end quote. We can't forget these things. Now check this out. That's a former CIA director, but there's more. Because right after that, another former CIA director, James Woolsey, longtime UFO skeptic, by the way. It's an incredible video to watch. But he recently signaled an openness to the possibility that UAP encounters might be extraterrestrial intelligence. That's two former CIA directors. Then we have John Ratcliffe, former President Trump's Director of National Intelligence. And John has no problem talking about UFOs. In a series of interviews, Ratcliffe ruled out a secret U.S. technology, and he cited high confidence, again quoting, high confidence intelligence assessments to eliminate foreign adversaries as possible explanations for the most compelling UFO encounters. And according to Ratcliffe, some UFOs exhibit, and again I quote, technologies that we don't have and frankly that we are not capable of defending against, end quote. Woolsey and Brennan are not the only directors of the CIA to speak openly about UFOs. As a matter of fact, it goes all the way back to when the CIA was first put into operation in 1947, when Vice Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the first director of the CIA, said, and once again I quote, through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe UFOs are nonsense. Behind the scenes, however, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned, end quote. In June 2021, Florida Senator Marco Rubio said this, once again, a direct quote, men and women have been entrusted with the defense of our country are reporting encounters with unidentified aircraft with superior capabilities. We cannot allow the stigma of UFOs to keep us from seriously investigating this, end quote. Now, also back in June, Utah Senator Mitt Romney said that he does not believe the UAP task force report describes objects from foreign adversaries, saying, and I love this, and it's another quote, I know they are. They say trillions of galaxies out there. So who knows what might have developed somewhere else? End quote. Andre Carson, a Democrat from Indiana, also on the Senate Intelligence Committee, is asking for a public hearing on the subject, something that hasn't happened since 1966. And back then, it was at the request of Gerald Ford, then the House Minority Leader. It's incredible what's going on today. And apparently, it's the only matter left which Democrats and Republicans can agree on right now. and that's UFOs and ETs visiting Earth. Now, as I think about John Warner coming on the show tonight and his knowledge and what he's been exposed to, again, we'll get to all of that with John in just 2 short minutes. But I know that there are 2 worlds out there. There are 2. And there is one that is completely secret, and there is one that is okay with talking to the public. Both of them live in Washington, D.C., and that first world has always won. Now the second world is starting to wrestle power, and they're starting to get a hold of this and a foothold. And now it appears that Washington is our friend. And I talk about this all the time. How can this be? Do we stay with building trust before we go all in? What is the agenda? What do they know? And why are they doing it now? I can't think of anybody better than John Warner IV to come on this show and answer these very important questions. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, John Warner IV, we are going to be discussing the hidden history of the United States, the power elite of the world, and of course, how all of that ties into the UFO question. Tomorrow night, Roger R. Richards is here to announce his new film, The Observers. Wednesday night, Paola Harris. She's back. The international take on disclosure. And then Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and the Game Changer Network, KJCR, and the UnX Network, Raise Hobbs. That's right. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, and I'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from Rivermoon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all Rivermoon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Hello, Fadernauts. Ray Sobbs here, inviting all of you to join us for the launch of a brand new broadcasting platform called the UNX Network. Tune in Halloween night as we go live on the X Streams for the first time to reveal our plans for this brand new and exciting platform. If you have an interest in the paranormal, UFOs, cryptids, ghosts, hidden histories, and alternative research, breakthrough technology, you will want to make the X your brand new home. Our programs will feature many familiar faces and even more new ones. And our listeners can interact and help investigative journalists, authors, researchers, and hosts who work diligently in the fight against the ideological divide that exists in media today. This platform is for critical thinkers seeking the alternatives to mainstream thought. So join us October the 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern at unxnetwork.com as we kick off the mothership, the UNX Network, explaining the unexplained.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your Jimmy Church. What a great week. Launching on the UNX Network, which is premiering this evening. Very cool. Tonight, very special guest, John Warner IV. Tomorrow night, director Roger R. Richards is here. And then Wednesday night, Paula Harris. Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight, John Warner IV joins us, and he's here for the first time to discuss hidden history, global power, and the current agenda of disclosure and the technology behind UFOs and UAPs. He's an author. He's a historian with a passion for hidden history, revisionist historical narratives, and vintage cars. Oh, look out. We're supposed to talk UFOs tonight. Oh, man, we're going to go into the pedigree of Porsches and Ford GT350 Mustang. Shelby, 1966, fastback, the best car ever. He's been a skeptic about historical records, including textbooks, for over 30 years with a perspective that's been well honed. His father, 5-term U.S. Senator John W. Warner III, out of Virginia, was also Secretary of the Navy and Chairman of the Armed Services Committee during the Vietnam War. John's mother, Catherine Mellon, daughter of philanthropist Paul Mellon, was an activist who protested that war. She taught him to question authority. That's right. Think independently and to speak his mind. John has been behind the scenes with some of the most powerful and influential people in the United States and global history. In his historical novels, Little Anton, and the sequel, Lion, Tiger, Bear, he discloses the shocking hidden history possibilities of advanced technology and the covert schemes of the fascist power elite. His website is right there at JimmyChurchRadio.com. We've got the links up in social media, JohnWarner4author.com. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, John Warner. And you know, can I leave the fourth off, John? Good evening.
You can. As far as I know, I'm the only John William Warner IV in the world. But you never know. There's always an imposter out there somewhere.
You got to keep the fourth going, my man.
Yeah, there's a lot of John Warners, you know.
Yeah.
Anarchists and horse thieves.
I've been following your work for a long time, and always very interesting. And your takes on things always, makes me stop and think. But there's one thing that I want to mention to the audience out of the gate. you've kind of got the best of both worlds when it comes to pedigree and insight. You're a Warner and you're a Mellon, right? And you look at it from those terms, and to have you on the show that we can discuss things quite openly, that's the background. And I need the audience to be very clear when they understand where you're coming from, that you have these two amazing pedigrees, and that must have been a crazy life and a fun way to grow up.
It definitely had its challenges. My father was Secretary of the Navy and then chairman of the Bicentennial Administration. Then he was a senator for 30 years, and he was also married to Liz Taylor. So it was a little unusual. My mother was kind of a hippie, and their marriage blew up over the Vietnam War. They made us watch the news every single night, and I'm glad they did. But they argued like cats and dogs and scratched their eyes out. But then they became good friends afterwards. But, my mom always told me, Vietnam's a sham and Gulf of Tonkin is, false flag operation. She was right. I was like, really? It seems like a great war. Dad, I was a little kid,
Right.
Fan of Nixon. Nixon was a family friend, he'd come over for dinner and stuff. And so this was all sort of how I grew up. And DC is a small town, if you go to the National Cathedral schools, all the ambassadors and senators and military kids all go there. And we just grow up. Like one of my good friends is Susan Rice, who worked, with Obama, and others. It's very interesting. I have a friend who's a federal judge, and I have a friend who's retired Office of Naval Intelligence Navy captain, my friend Daniel. And we've had many conversations about UFO technology over the years. And, my wife is ex-CIA, and, I've got a lot of friends that I know in town. And, the funny thing is, the whole UFO thing is kind of a joke. If you go to cocktail parties, half the intel people are in on the game, and half of them are like, gosh, I don't even know what to think. And so it's kind of funny that way.
Now, I want to circle back to two things. One, the CIA, which is central to what we'll be talking about tonight for sure. But I got to talk about Liz Taylor for a second. Let's not let that blow past us.
I just knew it.
Yeah, she was your stepmom for a little bit.
She's a great person. I loved her very much. She believed in UFOs and ETs and all that.
Right.
She had seen one with Eddie Fisher off the coast of California in the late 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was, I tell this story, I was 14 and I was with my best friends, and we were smoking pot with Elizabeth in the kitchen, and my dad comes home and we're discussing, UFOs and national security and, Project Blue Book and all this crap, them not disclosing it and why. This is 1978. And my dad comes home, and she lets into him, why are you being such an old fuddy-duddy, and my dad just explodes. He's like, God wouldn't let this happen. There's no other life in the universe. And I know why he was angry, because he actually knew the truth. Because I used to read his top secret briefings when I was a little kid on his desk. And he was involved when he was Secretary of the Navy in Operation Deep Freeze in Antarctica. And I would pepper, I was a mischievous, clever kid. And I was like, come on, Dad. Tell me what's going on in Antarctica, because I knew about the Cold War and I was already into military history when I was 12.
Right.
And then when I was 14, I was with him in Switzerland, and he had a few drinks one night with Liz, and they had an argument. And so he and I went walking into the night, and I said, come on, Dad, tell me what's going on down in Antarctica with Operation Deep Freeze, which is still going on, by the way. And he said, well, the Russians got their bases. We need ours. We probably have a few missile silos down there. They have theirs. I said, why so far away? I knew that it was, 50 below every day. It's a harsh environment. And he looked up at the night sky and he pointed. It was a beautiful, clear night with stars. He said, space operations.
Wow.
Now, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, satellite stuff.
Right.
Maybe the old space station, that they had up there in the 70s. Oh, no, because fast forward in 93, I presented him a racing buddy in California. We were racing out there, And he said, my father's in the aerospace industry. And I was like, oh, tell me about that. And he's like, well, Lockheed Martin, Boeing Defense. And he says, I want to send you some stuff over the internet, some documents. I want to show to your dad. And I didn't even have the internet, so I had to go home and get dial-up. And he sends me the Majestic 12 files. And so I'm like, this is interesting. What the hell's this? And so I'm researching Stanton Friedman, and I read the book on Roswell, and I kind of follow the UFO scene because my mother got me into it. She used to buy me those books, Danik, Chariots of the Gods, and all those books, and the UFO magazines they had in the 70s, which were mostly crap.
Right.
But, and I got my dad to cave in finally on the MJ12 files. And he said, look, don't go down that road. You're not going to find anything. This is the highest classification. Maybe one or two crafts, dug in New Mexico and Corona and maybe a couple others, but that's it. And, this is all top level secrecy. I only know a little bit of it. You need to steer clear of it. And I said, there's no way I can do that.
Now, your dad always had the image of, well, let's back up. In 1976, 77, I'm a kid. You and I are about the same age. And when that marriage happened to Liz Taylor, I, like everybody else in the country, are scratching our heads. Like, what this John Warner guy? What is it about him? And that image, as he was thrust into, the media at that point, his image was always a very straight-laced politician. He had that image. Did he ever loosen up from that, or were you always fighting where he was respecting the politics and respecting the country and not necessarily loosening up?
Well, I was there when he went out. It was actually a setup date, and it was the British Embassy, and the Queen was in town. And he said, damn it, I got to go out on this blind date or whatever. I know some actress. And I didn't know who she was either. And I was only 14, And but the thing is, they're kind of opposites. He is very conservative, but he's very funny too. He's a great guy, and they both love people. Man, do they both love people. I do too, but man, they're amazing. And politics was natural for him, but she was kind of a politician herself. She was the biggest deal in town in the 70s, and there was no bigger movie star in the world.
No.
He had no idea what he was getting into, but they fell in love fast. And she was very lovable. She was a lot of fun. But they shared commonalities. First of all, the Queen of England hated her that night. That was a big deal. The Queen can't stand her. And my dad thought that was really funny because my family, the Mellon family, they're very close traditionally with the British royal family. My great-grandfather, Andrew Mellon, was, ambassador to England in 1931 and Secretary of the Treasury. And so my grandfather, Paul Mellon, was very good friends with the Queen. They had the horse racing thing in common. And when he was an OSS, U.S. Army major in World War II, I know he spent time in London with his brother-in-law, David K.E. Bruce, who was OSS Station Chief of London. And of course, his other buddy was Alan Dulles, which was Station Chief of Switzerland. No conspiracy there.
No.
They were all involved in Project Paperclip, And so he spent time in London, and my mother always wondered whether or not they dated in secret, but I don't know.
Well, and all of this brings me back to you live in Washington, D.C., and the connections of your families, on both sides, and you being so vocal about these subjects. Now it's a little bit of a safer zone than it was, say, 10 years ago, for sure. But the agencies must be listening and watching your comments. Have they reached out to you in the last, let's just go 12 months. Have they reached out to you in the last 12 months going, hey, John, we got to talk?
No, they haven't. But, I know Chris and Lou, they're aware of my Twitter memes and other things. But the thing is with me is I was a pro racing driver, and for 20 years. I'd followed the UFO scene a little bit. I was always a sci-fi fan, huge Star Trek fan. But the MJ12 files, when my dad confirmed those, and I sort of woke up in 1993. I was a very young, naive 31. I really was. I admit that. And I was just like having the time of my life, how cold was the beer, how fast my race car could go, and how many women I could date. And I was dating Paul Mellon's daughter, and he and I were good friends. I was kind of living this fast life. But in 2002, I hurt my back. I've got metal parts in my back, and a friend of mine gave me a book, and it was Nick Cook's book, The Hunt for Zero Point. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I looked Nick Cook up, and he and I have talked. He did an interview with me, and he and my dad knew each other because he worked for Jane's Military Weekly.
Mm-hmm.
He's a correspondent and a journalist. And he started talking about Hans Kammler and all the anti-gravity and the SS program in Silesia and also in Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. And I was like, wait a minute. Because I had a discussion with my grandfather. He was kind of a cold, aloof guy, but because I was a man, he and I was sort of interested in the military stuff, he paid a little bit of attention to me, kind of ignored my mother and sisters. And I sat down with him one day, I said, let's talk about the war. I want to come over, have a martini. And he's drinking these 100 proof martinis, lethal. And I asked him, tell me, and he said, well, at the end I was in the OSS, I did various jobs, but I was with Alan Dulles and Patton, and he fox hunted with Patton and General Marshall in Middleburg, Virginia. So they all knew each other before the war. Yeah, DC was a very chummy place. The OSS wanted rich, well-traveled intellectuals, and that was my grandfather. His wife, Mary Mellon, my grandmother, was a full-on mystic. I mean, she was, knew Carl Jung really well. They both did.
Yes.
She knew Gurdjieff. She knew all about Rudolf Steiner and Annie Besant and the Theosophists. So she was, tuned into the universe, Atlantis, E.T. visitation, all that.
Wasn't she
Brill
part
and Thule societies of Germany? She knew all of that.
Was she at the now infamous seance where they summoned the 9? Was she at that seance?
I'm not sure. The one they did in the Eros conferences in Switzerland before the war.
Yeah.
With Carl Jung. She might have been. I can't remember. But she was definitely super smart and, brought my grandfather into that fold. And so that's why the OSS, he was a U.S. Army major at Fort Riley, Kansas, dealing with the horse saddles and everything. I mean, that was his thing. He was a horse, aficionado, good rider. But she said, look, about the occult, why don't you join the SS? Because they knew Donovan from the fox hunting scene. I mean, you got to remember, DC is a very small town still today, but it was really small.
Mm-hmm.
And Middleburg, Virginia is the very posh horse racing, equestrian part of, where I grew up on the weekends out in Virginia. And so they knew each other. I have a picture my grandfather took of Marshall and Patton in their fox hunting, outfits. And so I think that's how he got into the OSS. He told me that at the end of the war, he was with Patton and Marshall, I think General Marshall, and a few other generals and Alan Dulles, and they were in Pilsen. Now, Patton wanted to go to Berlin, and he and the Third Army could have done it. But Ike said, no, you need to do something more important. You need to go to Pilsen and secure the SS E4 division, which was, kind of like the Area 51 of Czechoslovakia, the German, conquered lands. And so SS General Hans Kammler was in charge of that. He was a contractor, built all the death camps, and he was the one who installed the slave labor program. He's like, look, we've got all this Russians and Jews. Let's use them as slave labor and build rockets and jets. And so he was the instigator of that. But my grandfather, I said, what were you doing there? What did you see? And he said, well, we went into a hangar and we saw all the rockets and the V2s and some V3 components. They were well on their way to having a much bigger V3 rocket to hit the East Coast of the United States. with an atomic weapon, and they were well far along in the atomic program that we're taught in history. I mean, really far along. I mean, J.P. Farrell mentions it in the Russian front, the high casualties. They had thermobaric fuel air bombs in the rocket launchers on the Eastern Front. The Germans were way ahead. And the more I've studied them throughout the decades, the more I'm convinced J.P. Farrell and others and Nick Cook and everybody are correct. Because my grandfather said, I saw rocket engines, I saw the television guided missile, the Flugelrad, and with the jet engines and everything. And then he said, I saw a very large disc-shaped aircraft. And I said, okay, was that also powered by the UMO or BMW jet engines? He said, no. This thing was much bigger.
Now, where do you think? There's been a lot of speculation about this, and if you go back to some of the radio programs from the 1950s and you listen to the discussions that went on back then, and I've done this a lot, that was a big right after World War II, 47, 48, 50, 51, 52, the conversation amongst those out there that were researching the subject was all about German saucer technology and what was sequestered, what was brought over, Operation Paperclip. This was a big subject in the 50s. Where do you think that technology ultimately landed? You think the Russians got a bunch of it? We got some of it? Was it equally divided? We were both chasing down the same scientist.
Well, what I've pieced together, and I write about some of these things in my books, but what I've pieced together, this is what I think happened. Everyone has a different version, but I from my grandfather's story, and when I read Nick Cook's book, that's when my jaw hit the floor. I was like, shit, this is what my grandfather was talking about.
Right.
Because I hadn't thought of it in 20 years. And but I think what happened was, at the end of the war, obviously there was a Nazi rat line. By 43, most of the SS, the top Nazis in the SS, they knew it was over. It was just too many Russians, too many tanks. The Allies were going to have they had a second front in Italy, through Sicily, and they were going to come in a Western front. And they knew it was pretty much all over. They started the rat line, through the Vatican to Barcelona, then on to freighters and U-boats to either, Argentina. That's well documented. Probably just, this Antarctic base in Neuschwabenland. I think there's something definitely to that. How big or small it is, I'm not sure, but the Germans, they were capable of anything. A lot of people say, oh, that would have been impossible during the war. And it's like, don't use that word. That word should be scrubbed from the lexicon. Everything is possible in our universe. Everything. That's the one thing I can agree on with all my ONI friends and CIA. Everything is possible in the universe. So what I think happened was Project Paperclip. My grandfather, Patton, a few other people, they said, shit, we got to load up all this stuff, all the Nazi scientists, all the paperwork. There were mature nonlinear experiments, free energy, the Nazi Bell, torsion field plasma accelerator, which is not that big a deal. People think, oh, it's impossible. It's like, no, anti-gravity and free energy. Once you know the tricks, it's not that hard. I mean, there's good evidence they had basic anti-gravity in the 19th century. Sonora Aero Club, the 1897 airship mystery. People think that's all a joke. It's not. It's in the American press. You could prove that there were sightings. So what I was told by various people, they had the long-range Douglas DC-6 at the end of the war. Now the first Berlin airlift, forget it wasn't Berlin. It was Pilsen. They were around the clock with DC-4s. They probably hauled the Nazi Bell off either by train or airplane. I'm not sure which. No one is. All these scientists and everyone make deals. The ones that didn't go to Argentina, a lot of them went to Argentina and then came to America and worked for NASA or Bell Helicopter, like Walter Durenberger. And they loaded everything up on these DC-6s and trains, and they got the hell out of there. And I'll bet you that this is May 1945. I'll bet you by July 1 or sooner, because the Russians were well on their way.
Yeah, the Russians were doing the exact same thing that we were. They were loading up file cabinets into trucks as fast as they could move dollies and grabbing everything. And we were doing all of that. So you're probably right. By June 1st, all those offices were empty.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And, at the Yalta conference, the story is that FDR and Churchill promised Stalin in a deal. It's like, you get Czechoslovakia. But before you get there, we're going to send Patton and his Third Army in with a bunch of OSS guys, and we're going to haul out all the good stuff. And the Russians really got the dregs. They got a few scientists, they got a few, toys and other things. But we got the lion's share. And I've been told it's well over 5,000 Nazi SS and German scientists and technicians, and all their data and all their equipment. You're talking chemical lasers from I.G. Farben. You're talking free energy, mature nonlinear physics experiments, Walter Gerlach, Hans Kammler's stuff. He had a lot of stuff to trade. He was no dummy. He knew he'd have to hold back on secrets so that he could bargain with the Americans and the English.
Now,
it all makes perfect sense.
It does. It does. We need to take a break. And before we get there, Russia ended up, getting a satellite up before us with Sputnik in 1957.
Well, maybe.
But my point being, that shocked everybody because that was the public version of the space race, right? And I think everybody was taken by surprise with that. Or was it first? And where did this technology come from? And did somebody have some help? And all of that we'll discuss. I'm setting everything up when we come back after the break. Our guest tonight, the one and only John Warner IV. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Tonight is the premiere of the UNX Network. Raise Hobbs. I want to welcome everybody that is listening from all around the world and all across the United States. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with John Warner IV when we come back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great week we have here on the show. I want to welcome everybody over at the NX Network. Race Hobbs. Tonight, John Warner IV is with us. Tomorrow night, director Roger R. Richards is here. Wednesday night, Paula Harris. And then Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight, John Warner IV is with us. And so, John, that's a great setup. And for that kind of historical perspective, I think we all need it. And if we go back, and I want to combine everything that you just said. If we go talking about the OSS, which morphed into the CIA, that happened in 1947. 1947, we have, of course, Roswell and other crash retrievals that happened around the country. And from that point forward, the race to technology was on, and it was globally, and certainly here in the United States. But the efforts of squashing ET and UFO information started in 1947 and were right off of the heels of World War II, where secrecy and keeping your mouth shut was a method of operation that everybody practiced. Civilians, military, politics, globally, that's the way that the world ran. And that form of secrecy continues through to this very day. It did start in 1947, didn't it?
Yeah, the National Security Act, there were a lot of strange things in 47. There's a story that occultists, Jack Parsons was a chemist for JPL Labs, that he had been corresponding with Aleister Crowley, who was an MI6 agent and a premier occultist of the 20th century. There's a story that purports that they did a Babylon workings, ritual at the Area 51 site in 1947. It was just a bomber, small airport and a bombing range. I find that a very interesting story. I think I believe that. Apparently there's large tunnels under Area 51 that go every which way. I mean, huge tunnels. And who built those tunnels? Well, I wonder, you know. But anyway, back to your question, 47 was a pivotal year, there's no doubt.
And with this openness that is happening today, we are forced into, especially in the UFO community, but the rest of the world too, whenever there was a UFO sighting or report in the national news, and I was part of this action myself personally, so I can speak about it directly. They would cover the story and then cue the X-Files music. They did it to me. I couldn't believe it. And that's the way
I love that.
That's the way it's always been treated. And suddenly,
you've done that for me. I would have loved that.
And well, you know what though? I've got that feather in my cap. I can actually say that happened. I have the videotape. But is this today? Everybody is talking about it. It's the military, it's politicians, it's corporations, it's private citizens, and it's the mass media. Where suddenly Washington, D.C. wants to be the UFO community's friend. At what point do we trust a little more? I mean, you know, do we extend this out, or do we stop and accept what is going on?
Well, you can see me smiling, but the audience can't. No, I was born and raised here. I mean, I spent time in the Pentagon when I was a kid in my father's office from 68 to 74. You know, I spent a lot of time in the U.S. government, and I know a lot of people who've worked in the military and the intel community and the scientific community. D.C. First of all, you know, my father and I had a conversation about 10 years ago, and I finally got him to admit that all senators and congressmen are bought and paid for, special interests, which is why he aligned himself with the Navy and the Marines. It's a very solid background. They have his back. And he said, I didn't want any of that crap. And I said, well, that was smart. You know, suddenly they're interested in UFOs. Come on. I mean, I don't think most Americans buy that at all. Congress, you're not going to get much. I'd say, you know, nowadays maybe 5% are read in on some above top secret stuff. Like my father was read in on a thin slice of the UFO file. You know, he was, he had connections to MJ-12 and other roundtables with different names. You know, they change the names all the time. But most of them, you know, Marco Rubio doesn't know jack shit about UFOs or, I mean, I'm sorry. You know, these people, UAP task force, you know, UAP is just a distractive term. That was a Hillary Clinton Podesta term, you know, they're trying to water down the narrative. And by all accounts, they're doing a pretty good job, except we're in the era of the Great Awakening. You know, since the 1960s, you know, the consciousness has been rising on the whole world, and they know they can't stop that. You know, people in the deep state, the 5% that wear black cowboy hats and Nazi armbands, you know, that want to keep all this stuff top secret and never let it out. But, you know, the people of the United States, I can't speak to other countries, but the people of the United States, they've been, you know, movies, television, books, everything, the internet, the education on some of this is rising at a fast pace. None of my friends are really interested in this topic, but they did ask me questions when Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo came out in 2017. You know, and they said, oh, Warner's not such an idiot after all. And I'm like, thanks a lot. You know, but as far as Washington being, you know, what I think is happening, and I'm not alone, Stephen Greer and I agree on this, somewhere in the military, industrial, corporate intel complex, which is massive, there's there's always been pressure since the 50s, but, you know, Majestic 12 or whatever, they kicked the can down the road. And then, I'll let you, in 10 years, you guys handle it. I want to retire with my pension and my investments. but something's going on. And I think it's a combination of ET and human, and it's different factions in the military industrial, this complex out there, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, national security state is more apt. There's some sort of pressure happening. And, other people have mentioned this, but, I've seen the temperature in DC. UFOs used to be laughed at on the news and on Capitol Hill. I mean, Bobby Ray Inman, the Admiral, I used to ask him about UFOs in my father's office. Oh, well, I'm hopeful. He's like, the Navy has all kinds of technology, and we hope to disclose it in 2000. Well, what did we get in 2001? We got 9/11. So I think that put the fear of God in everyone in DC and elsewhere in the military, just as the Kennedy assassination had done. In other words, keep your damn mouth shut. And it worked for a little while. And then the conspiracy theorists really started to come out. And I saw there's a photo of my dad and Rumsfeld and Cheney walking in front of the Pentagon, the giant hole. And I said, Dad, I'm a pilot. Where the hell are the engines and the indentation where the wings went in? He would not talk about that with me. We were very close. And that was the one, he's like, I'll talk with you about the other stuff, but not that.
And so
that's when a shiver really went down my spine in 2001.
And so why now? We have, of course, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's article back in 2017 in the New York Times. Was this going to happen anyway? And was that just a catalyst to push this conversation forward? Or was it the revelations that were presented in that article that forced the Department of Defense's hand?
I think it was a combination of factors. First of all, the internet, the advent of the internet, they can muddy the waters like the Mekong River, but they can't make information disappear. They can try. They've scrubbed people from YouTube and elsewhere, and they have taken down websites. But there's an extraordinary amount of alternative information all over the internet. The problem is piecing it all together. I mean, I've tried to over 30 years. I really have. And I think there's internal pressure in the national security state. We have to do something because people are waking up and catching on too fast. And what I think is happening is an extension of Project Blue Book, which was in the 60s and 70s, which attempted to debunk UFOs, swamp gas and hysterical housewives, all that junk. But this is just a new version of it. I think the UAP task force initiative on Capitol Hill, that's complete childish nonsense. That's never going to go anywhere. It's like a race car on ice. You can have 1,000 horsepower. You could put more power down, but you're still spinning in circles. And that's what they're doing. The narrative isn't moving forward. It's moving sideways. It's an old counterintelligence tactic. It's for everyone who understands a lot of this stuff, as you and I do, it's pretty easy to see what they're trying to do. Oh, we're not sure. It's a mystery. Gee whiz, we got to have a task force to figure it out. It's UAP now. And, what I think they're going to do is they're going to just disclose the UAP and all this stuff. Oh, look, it's Lockheed Martin. It's Boeing. It's Grumman. They're just ours. There's only, there were only a couple of crashes 70 years ago. And we back engineered this entire, breakaway civilization, which I think is 1,000 years ahead of the mainstream. And they back engineered it from 2 craft, when in reality, there were thousands of craft crashing all over the world, probably all throughout history, but definitely since, the early, after World War I, the 20s. And there's reports in the 20s and 30s. Everyone thinks Roswell. Oh, no. Far before that. And there was communication, I think. The Brill Society, the Tula Society of Germany, I think they were communicating with their factions. And I think FDR, and the Americans, we were communicating with some people in the vein of Val Thor and that kind of group, either probably during the war, because there were crashes during the war. There was the Battle of Los Angeles in 1942, and I think a UFO crash in Cape Girardeau.
Cape Girardeau, yeah.
Yeah, in 41, 42. And the FBI got a hold of it. And then the Army G2 guys got there and they had I write about this. They had a big to-do. They always fight about over the wreckage. And the Navy comes in there, no, it's ours, and the Army claims it's theirs. It's these things are kind of a well-known joke around town, but they're creating a new narrative, a new space, and they're going to say they want to control it, just like they did with Project Blue Book. But you can't fool people anymore. We have the internet. People are waking up. Kids are smarter. I mean, I have a 7-year-old step-grandson. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then we have, staying on this, the revelations of ATIP in December of 2017 was in direct contrast to what the Air Force and the Department of Defense had been telling us publicly, that they don't have any interest in UFOs. Well, clearly they always have. And Blue Book probably ended by name, but the research was always there. But today, it's the United States Navy is the central figure in this, and not the Air Force anymore. Is it because the Air Force just isn't saying anything? They must have the best data on any ET contact.
I'm not sure who has the best data. I think everyone's got a slice of the pie. But the Navy and the Air Force have traditionally not get along. The Army, Navy, Air Force, they've always fought.
Right.
But from what I know, there's been many more crashes out to sea. And you remember that I think it was called the Glomar Explorer. Howard Hughes cobbled together the CIA ship to pick up Russian submarines. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what else they were picking up? It's always been about a technology hunt. This is what I write about in my book, Lion, Tiger, Bear. The Ahnenerbe SS, the Archaeologist and Historical Racial Society that was in bed with the Tula and the Vril Society, they were after this, the Vedic texts in India. They were going to Tibet to find Agartha, and measure a few skulls for Himmler. But, in reality, they were on a technology hunt. Most people don't realize the Germans were in Baghdad in 40 and 41 before the British kicked them out. Well, they looted the Baghdad Museum. And what did they loot the Baghdad Museum for in the 90s? Clay tablets, which are Anunnaki writings and lists of goods and technology if you know what you're looking for and you know how to translate them. So this is nothing new. I think the U.S. Navy has always had the lion's share. I wrote in chapter 1 of my book, I write it that, they had been seeing Foo Fighters, that's what they called them, coming out of the water, and the Japanese thought they were ours, and we thought they were the Japanese, and the Germans thought they were, everyone thought they were everyone else's, but they weren't. They were flying through airplanes. They were disrupting electrical systems and engine ignition systems, and they scared the crap out of a destroyer, and, they started firing on it. And I know through the piecing together of different files and information on FDR that he gave orders, do not shoot at them unless they shoot at you first. And he knew they wouldn't, because most ETs visiting Earth are benevolent. The 3%.
Right.
May have been in cahoots with the Nazis, and they're not so nice people, and they're still wandering around the Pentagon in DC today, is what I've heard,
Now,
the majority are benevolent.
The how do I want to say, the aloofness of the Department of Defense and the DIA in the UAPTF report, we don't know what's going on. It's not ours. It's not Russian. But they did everything but put an ET label on this. I understand the reasons why. But anyway, they are stating that they know
the Russians and the Chinese too.
Yeah, right. Saying that they clearly don't know anything. Well, they know an awful lot. And the UAP task force report with this giant hole in it saying that the Department of Defense doesn't know anything. We have no clue about what's going on. That has to be an untruth. Is that just a blatant lie?
Yeah. I mean, people have to get over that the U.S. government and military, yes, national security, oh my God, the Russians and Chinese and Iranians are listening, Some of that has a grain of truth, but, I've seen sheets of drawings of UFOs, with military markings. I've been told by my intelligence friends and my own eye friend, the U.S. Navy has charts of thousands of different shapes, sizes, colors of craft. They know who's piloting them for the most part. They know where they came from. And most of the time they know what they're up to, agenda-wise. Not always, but, and they keep lists. Now, my O&I friend said, let me tell you about the satellites. The U.S. Navy has 2-man satellites, like the Air Force. The Air Force replenishes them with anti-gravitic B-2 bombers. That's why they cost $2 billion apiece. Yeah, $2.3 billion. And that was 20 years ago, that cost. It's because they have, all this high technology on them. They're anti-gravitic and they're low Earth orbit capable. And so he's like, are the Navy satellites can track these sons of bitches punching in and out superluminal, which is beyond the speed of light, and they could track them 25 miles beneath the ocean or land, day or night.
Now, Ratcliffe alluded to this, I believe it was Ratcliffe, where he said that we have been tracking them with our satellites approaching Earth and then entering our atmosphere. We have this data, and we know where they are going to. And I think that was pretty bold on Ratcliffe's part to state that, but that kind of technology has to be obvious, right? Our satellites are out there. They're tracking everything, asteroids, right? They're tracking everything that's going on in our star system. They must be tracking stuff that is coming in and entering our atmosphere. And is this tracking the tic-tac? Is this tracking what the Foo Fighters were in World War II? Coming and going from the ocean. Is this just one and the same thing that has been going on for 70 years?
Well, from what I've gathered, Foo Fighters were probably some type of plasma drone information, just like our drones today. They gather information. But, the World War II pilots and Navy people, they saw flying saucers and giant cigars. They saw all that stuff back in World War II. We're just not told about it. It's just like you were saying, the first satellite into space. I'm positive by 47 or 48, we had cobbled together a German V2, put a basic round satellite on it, and had it in orbit. But it was classified. The Russians aren't going to disclose anything. They disclose Sputnik for political reasons. Mm-hmm. We've had stuff up in orbit, all throughout the late 40s and 50s. But it's obvious that not only can they track and these guys are going where. I think that, that we've been doing a trade interaction with ETs, various groups, some say up to 900 or 1,000 different races for everything. It's not all nefarious, but a lot of it, is unconstitutional and very unsavory. It's a trade, the barter system. There's no money out in the, if there's a planet out there with money, it's just like ours. That's slavery. That's debt slavery. And so, it stands to reason, everyone's, the UAP. UAP, Charles Hall describes them in his book about the tall whites out at Indian Springs. The tall whites were blue-collar Anunnaki who were had a bad time with some of their countrymen out in space, and they came here looking for asylum. And they were not the nicest people. They liked Charles Hall. He was young and nice. They liked him, but they treated others very badly. And lo and behold, they were flying around in these white tic-tacs. And I think slowly over 50, 60 years, they slowly gave the U.S. Air Force or whoever, Lockheed Martin, that technology, as a way to pay their rent. Because they call it, the people at Groom Lake, Area 51, they call it the Holiday Inn, Papoose Lake and Indian Springs, there's underground facilities there. And so everyone's like, I give Lockheed Martin all the credit in the world, but come on, we've gotten blueprints, so to speak, electronic, probably holographic blueprints from ETs, probably going back to the 40s and 50s. But it takes time to back engineer.
As we head into the break, and we'll set up for when we turn around and come back, there has been a lot of talk, and nobody's really figured anything out yet, but that the UAP situation, and specifically the tic-tac, may be backwards engineered alien technology that we possess, and that's what the tic-tac was. And but the Soviet Union and China, they have the same crash retrievals going on. This isn't a U.S. phenomenon. Are they in possession of the same technology that we are?
In a sense, yes. I think the Russians are probably catching up to us. They probably might have parity now. The Chinese are way behind us. No one's quite sure their secret space program, how advanced it is. I'm sure they have some stuff that is pretty good. It depends which factions, of ETs are advising them as contractors. I mean, they call them contractors. A guy in the Pentagon, a high-level officer said, "Oh yeah, we call them, contractors." It's this big joke. The Anunnaki walk the halls of the Pentagon every goddamn day. It's the NSA. You go to the lower levels, and there's grays, several species, tall, short, of the grays helping out, and it's like. My son-in-law works for the NSA. They're like, he's like, I want to work with the aliens. My friend Uncle Johnny over here told me, and they said, "Well, would you like to?"
No.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this stuff publicly?
Said, no, I was just joking. And then like, well, be advised that we're not.
Wow. Let's take a break. That right there is making me think. Let's take a break right here. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John Warner, I'm going to say it, the fourth, is with us. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network, KJCR, and the UNX Network. We will be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hello, Fadernauts. Ray Sobbs here, inviting all of you to join us for the launch of a brand new broadcasting platform called the UNX Network. Tune in Halloween night as we go live on the X Streams for the first time to reveal our plans for this brand new and exciting platform. If you have an interest in the paranormal, UFOs, cryptids, ghosts, hidden histories, and alternative research, breakthrough technology, you will want to make the X your brand new home. Our programs will feature many familiar faces and even more new ones. And our listeners can interact and help investigative journalists, authors, researchers, and hosts who work diligently in the fight against the ideological divide that exists in media today. This platform is for critical thinkers seeking the alternatives to mainstream thought. So join us October the 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern at unxnetwork.com as we kick off the mothership, the UNX Network, explaining the unexplained.
Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, our guest, John Warner IV. I've been looking forward to this show for a long time. And now, before I get back to John, John, in the UFO world, I like to play a game when I go to conferences. I like to play a game called Spot the Fed. Right? Okay. Because you know they're out there. And it's a thing we have fun with, right? Well, in one of the chat rooms tonight, it appears that they've spotted a Fed in the chat room. Calling them out, man. Calling them out. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. Spot the Fed. Spot the Fed. Now, how easy is it to keep a secret? And we can always talk about, the Manhattan Project. We can talk about, that and use certain things for references. But if you've got ET technology, you're going to hold your cards close to the chest. And that includes Russia and China. And I reflect back to the United States right now. Are we talking a bit too much? Are we letting our cards show? And I'm sure you understand the question. Are we just talking about this too much?
No. This whole dog and pony show through the decades. I mean, young people don't realize this, but we've been calling the Chinese and the Russians, and the Iranians our enemies for decades. They're always the boogeymen. This is bullshit. The United States military and our Space Force, how big or small it is, no one's quite sure, but I think it's really big. We have the firepower to defeat all countries combined over the world, probably 100 times over. This whole thing that we're leaking things to our enemies, and there's cyber warfare between China and the United States and the Russians. That's just common stuff. But this hot war where nukes are going to fly, I don't think any nuke is going to work. I think ETs have disabled those. There's a lot of people that, they see them around nuclear installations. I've heard that by 93, they had melted down everything and nothing works. You can roll out new ones, because if you let off a nuke, and Robert Oppenheimer knew this when he was inventing the atomic bomb. Actually, he didn't, the Germans did, but in 44, when they lobbed off the Hiroshima weapon, Fat Man and Little Boy, he said something from the Vedic texts, and that is, I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. Now, most people think he's talking about our world. He wasn't. He was talking that when the word is metaphysically that when you let off a nuclear weapon, it not only affects the local battlefield at hand, but it destroys, it kills millions of other life forms and people in nearby dimensions. So into the fourth and maybe even to the lower fifth dimension. Mm-hmm. So you're killing people you can't see. And Oppenheimer knew that. John G. Trump, the physicist, worked with them. He knew that because they were all Freemasons and occultists. So they knew the esoteric truth of the world. They were high level. So was FDR, Marshall, Churchill. This whole idea that, we were always cooperating with the Russians on the lower levels, above top secret levels. My dad told me, in 83, most people don't remember, we were very close to nuclear war in 83 with the Russians, just like 1962. And my dad said, we've been close to war because, all these generals and admirals are idiots. They don't know that we're cooperating on the deeper levels. And so something could go off, which is why my dad was always in the SALT II talks and everything in the 70s. They were always trying to improve the communications with the Russians. But, the hardliner Russians and then our own hawks, they always want to mix it up and think they can survive a nuclear war. But ET took a big interest during World War II when we were developing nuclear weapons, because we're not just killing ourselves, we're killing others. And that's a big no-no in the universe. So that's what Oppenheimer meant about that. But I think, them, saying we're leaking stuff out, that's all bullshit. America, it's surprising how much intelligence we do have, because from the Russians and the Chinese and anybody else, or England, it's very little. They don't talk about, people have to really dig hard to find intelligence. Now, granted, we probably have a lot more counterintelligence and garbage out there floating around to muddy the Mekong River, as it were.
Right.
But, are we giving away things to our enemies? No, that's an old excuse. Really old. And, I've heard Lou Elizondo and others, Chris Mellon, they say, oh, we don't want to, alarm our enemies. Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. Anyone in Washington tell you that. Anyone in the Pentagon tell you that. They're not our real enemies. They never really were.
Now, what do we do with, these days of disclosure that we are in? Why aren't we hearing anything from Putin? Why aren't we hearing anything from China? Certainly, their military is having the same issues that our military has. They have to have had a tic-tac event, right? They must have. Why aren't they speaking out about these current events?
Well, there's a guy I saw last night, a Chinese guy, and he said, it's a communist country, it's totalitarian. But you can talk about UFOs because it's part of their science. It's not a conspiracy. It's not, woo-woo. It's actually part of science. So you're actually allowed to research that. In Russia, it's just a blackout. I mean, it's the Russians. They're like, we'll let the Americans and everyone. And the British are the same. They're like, forget it. We're not talking about it. But because America has this giant military-industrial complex that's involved with private corporations, and of course, all the technology is in private corporation hands. That way, Congress can't get their hands on it. Not that they really would anyway, but there's always that fresh congressman or woman who will try, and then they get a knock on the door, and they're threatened. Shut the hell up.
Well, you bring up a great point, though. Russia and China is one thing, but Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, France. Certainly, they have a huge interest in this, but I don't hear their politicians speaking about this at any level. When you brought up Marco Rubio earlier, and my point is a simple one. Marco Rubio may not know anything, but he has an interest in it. He's talking about it. I don't hear our allies talking about it like we have Capitol Hill talking about it right now. And I have to ask, why is that? Why aren't they at the table with us?
Well, I think if I had to guess, I mean, Marco Rubio may have an interest in it, but I'm sure before he said word number one, the DIA, the CIA, and everybody else in Alphabet City paid him a visit and said, here's what you can talk about, and here's what you cannot. And that's what they're, my dad told me that. He's like, oh yeah, nobody, back in the 90s, early 2000s, nobody was talking about UFOs in Congress, as it was taboo. And now, all of a sudden, your question about England and Canada and Australia, New Zealand, they're all part of the general American alliance as far as secret technology, UFO technology. So they're like, oh no, America, you guys lead the point on this. And Russia's just watching to see what happens because, they want to create this new narrative that's kind of a nothing burger. They're just ours. And, ET had there might be somebody out there. We're not sure, some lie. And then they have control of the narrative again. But, because most people, 98% of the people on Earth, they listen to the news and they don't listen to the disclosure movement or you and me, or, they don't do that. We're the fringe, we're the nut jobs. So, the CIA and everybody, the DIA, they don't have to work that hard, but it's slowly changing. And I wouldn't have, in 2012, I think I heard Stephen Greer mention my father. I was just listening on the internet. I couldn't believe it. And then in 2017, Paul Mellon came forward and I'm like, oh my God, okay. I think the cosmos is trying to give me a message. So I never wanted to come forward publicly. I'm a private person. My wife and I live a very quiet life usually. But man, when they got up there and started lying and shifting the narrative and doing all this Project Blue Book nonsense, even my dad was like, you need to do what you got to do.
Now, the release on June 25th of the UAP Task Force report, we were all anticipating this, and we all read it as soon as it was released. And now we know that there's two versions. There's the public version. There's the classified version. What do you think that the Senate Intelligence Committee and others on Capitol Hill got to see in the classified version of the report? What do you think was in there? And were you privy to any of the classified elements?
I wasn't privy to them. I studied, history and the history, military history and everything. I pieced it all together from outside sources. They probably get the same thin file my dad got. And it's like, look, we have some stuff at Area 51, maybe Tonopah, they might mention that. And corporations have some interesting technology. And you need to pass the black budget, even though there's a secret black budget that's in the trillions, every year. Mm-hmm. Probably, I think Catherine Austin Fitts predicts it's probably more like the GDP of America is more like 25 trillion in a year. But that all goes to military and national security state. But Congress has never been a place that any kind of disclosure was ever going to happen. I mean, I'm sorry, they're not the brightest bulbs in the universe. Their elections from senator up to president are very well, engineered. We don't have a choice. We have the illusion of choice in America. Maybe some Congress that aren't sensitive, but if you are a congressman in a sensitive military area, you better believe they'll put someone in who plays ball. And there's a dog and pony show election, but it's nonsense. And so
that is extremely interesting to me. And with your own experience with your father as five-term senator, would he or somebody like him if they had the energy, do they have the ability to get at what is going on? Or is it just completely off limits and walled off?
It's completely off limits unless you are specifically read in. Remember, compartmentalization is an ironclad tool. Works great. It works like an Irish charm. And so, some people are read in on this, that, and the other, but it's, very specific. Like my dad knew a few things, he told me, but it's like, it's what, all the stuff I'm talking about, he's like, I've never heard of that. And I'm like, well, now you have, so they're very careful, but they've been doing this since World War II. I mean, they've got it down pat. Security, I've heard, Stephen Greer says it, and I believe it. The security in the national security state costs 7 times the R&D of the UFO technology. So that's how much security surrounds this. But again, they're doing something. Somebody's pressuring them. You've got to do something, but make it next to nothing as close as possible. And that's what they've done. They're talking. They're talking a lot, but saying very little. And to UFO disclosure people, it's like almost nothing. A tic-tac sighting, the Navy doesn't know what they are. That's a lie. It's just a lie. And, we use ET technology every day, fiber optics, chips, ballistic glass, cell phones, smartphones. Our smartphones are smarter than anything else because they have spyware. But, it's unbelievable the stuff. My favorite is cling wrap. An aerospace guy told me that. I was at a cocktail party and we were talking about torsion field generators and anti-gravitics. He was just nodding. And I said, what's your favorite ET back engineered technology? He's like, believe it or not, cling wrap. Reynolds wrap. Yeah. Reynolds. No, the plastic. Yeah. Clear plastic wrap, and you seal it around the edge of the bowl. Apparently they got that from ET. I don't know what they use it for in the military or whatever, but I think that's funny. They productize all this technology and they sell it back to us, even though the American people have paid for this R&D over the decades 10 times over or more. That's part of what the dirty laundry they want to keep secret is the money and the bank fraud that pays for this, the secret black budgets. Our roads and schools and bridges go to hell. And where does all our money go? Now, what are we really good at? America's day job is military. Washington, D.C. is one of 3 city-states in the world. There's, Rome, the Vatican, the city of London, and Washington, D.C., 3 city-states. And we're the military.
Yeah, you can throw Los Angeles in there. You can throw Los Angeles in, too. I don't want to disclose a whole lot here, but I'm going to say this in a general term to frame the question. You and I are part of a little private email group, and it's great. And the conversations that go on there are fantastic, entertaining too as well. I get a lot of great laughter out of it, but a lot of technical information is there, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But a lot of the conversation in this group with some of the biggest names out there, and there's also some agencies that are part of that list too as well. I find that very interesting. But the conversation goes back and forth about the physics of the tic-tac, the propulsion systems, and that this is back-engineered technology. And then there's the other side, the other part of this group of ours that says it's ET from the word go, and that it's not backwards tech. And I've seen your chats in there, but I'm going to ask you directly, do you feel that the tic-tac is ET, that's it, from outside of our star system visiting us, or is it backwards engineered alien technology?
I think a good portion of it is back engineered, but I don't want to discount our engineers and our aerospace companies. They're damn good. And so it's like a car company in the 50s. Oh my gosh, Mercedes has this new car with fuel injection, and they ship one over to the States, and GM engineers are looking at it, and they take the good parts that works for them, and then they make their own thing. And so I think that's what's going on here. It's like, we're not stupid. We're very creative. The word is out there amongst the galaxy and the ETs. It's like, those Earth people are violent, but they're really creative. They have great music.
Yep.
TV, but it's like, we're pretty good engineers.
Yeah.
And we can take stuff. It's like going to a junkyard. And it's like, well, you pick up an engine block and I pick up an old transmission and we rebuild them and make them better. And it's like, people are out there, the stories, they say, wow, you guys aren't such idiots after all. We give you junk and you guys turn it into something really good. It may not be the most advanced thing out there with consciousness. Some UFOs are grown from from their own DNA, so that the ship is a living being and it's part of you. That's the way to travel in style through the cosmos. The biosphere inside. It's made from your own DNA. Our stuff is more nuts and bolts. It's got a big block Chevy in it with 2 4-barrels. But it does work. And I think it's a combination. It always has been. In the early days, they might have copied the blueprints verbatim. The Germans figured it out. But even the German flying saucers, the Hanabus, they had incredible radiation problems. The first crews, the stories are that the first crews were really damaged, which I think they were getting a raw deal wherever they got the blueprints from. And, you can't just it's like handing General Grant a nuclear submarine in the Civil War. And it's like, he'd be like, okay, this is great, thank you, but how the hell does it work? And show us how to fix it and use it. And so you need advisors. It's just, you can channel information psychically, you could talk to an ET, but you need advisors, boots on the ground, who say, don't put that bolt here, do it here, and make it flush.
Well, there's, if you look at tardigrades, for example, they can survive in space and in harsh radiation, but they're a species indigenous here on planet Earth. Maybe those plans were for a species that wasn't affected by radiation. To them, it wasn't a big deal. It certainly affected us, but and that was always one way to look at it for me, going back to that. And staying on this, though, I'm asking directly if the tic-tac is backwards alien tech and it's ours, I'm talking about the tic-tac, why wouldn't Fravor or Kevin Day or the crews of the Nimitz carrier group been made aware of the testing of this technology on their battle group?
Oh, it's been going on forever. The Air Force and Army and Navy, they're all rivals, so you can have this tic-tac coming out of Lockheed Martin and they're like, there's probably the admiral on board the carrier, maybe the captain, and a few other officers who are aware, and maybe some enlisted as well, but very few. And they test it and the pilots go wild, they're like, holy cow, shit, and everything. That's been going on for a long time, apparently. You test new stuff and you get the reaction from your own guys first. And I think they released all that video because it was old, 2004. It had already been on the internet, by the way.
Yes, it was.
Out on CNN, it was already on the internet. So it was kind of a lame thing. But, at least they brought it out. They got this dead subject out where people can talk about it, and they've kept at it. I give my cousin Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo and the other people in the military credit for at least, giving the subject some, notoriety and putting some spotlights on it. But that's an old trick, let's test it and scare the Navy guys,
Do you anticipate, and I've heard the chatter from some sources, that the Navy and the Department of Defense will eventually come out and give a benign explanation to the tic-tac that's not going to be extraterrestrial, that it will be our technology, and eventually they're going to poo-poo the entire tic-tac event?
Yeah, they will not, because first of all, there's a grain of truth. They always say there's a threat out there, and they kind of, maybe the Chinese, the Russians, maybe ET. Wernher von Braun warned us about this false flag, operation that's been a plan in the works since the 50s. But, fear works fantastic. The Nazis figured that out through Goebbels and propaganda. Fear, people fall in line, if you scare them enough. But Americans, I can only speak for Virginians, but, they're not going to be all that scared about some ET threat. They'll be out there on their porches with, shotguns and anti-aircraft batteries and Humvees. They'll be ready to go. They're not going to be scared. 9/11 didn't scare us. It galvanized this country. I saw it firsthand.
Yeah, and as we head into the break, and this has been a great conversation. No, I've got a different question. We're going to go sideways. We'll get back to UFOs when we come back. But I have to ask you, the greatest car motor ever designed, what is it?
Oh my gosh, an automobile?
Yeah. There's only going to be, what comes to mind first?
Oh, for me, personally, the greatest. Man, that's tough. I'd have to say I had a Packard, 1936 Packard with a 12-cylinder in it. Now, Packard made all the PT boat engines of World War II and the Rolls-Royce Merlin under license because they were the best engine builders in America. And General, who was it in the Pacific?
MacArthur.
A big hat, corncob pipe.
MacArthur.
Yeah, MacArthur said, "Thank God for Packard engines," because they rescued him in a PT boat.
That's right. That's right.
So I'd have to say the Packard 12. It was Packard. They built marine engines, aircraft engines. They were an amazing company.
Yeah.
And
based in Indiana. That's a Hoosier product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Packard, Duesenberg, Studebaker, Auburn. Yeah, all out of Auburn, Indiana. Actually, see, I told you I knew my cars, but I'm gonna.
I have to ask you one question.
Sure.
Have you ever done a Wolfman Jack impersonation on
Man, everybody makes that reference, and I don't hear it.
You got the deep voice.
I know. I don't hear it. There's not a day that.
Amazing. When I first heard you, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever you came on.
Yeah.
Damn, he's channeling Wolfman.
I hear it every day. I don't hear it. I love some Wolfman Jack, though.
He was unique, and you're unique, but I'm an American Graffiti guy. I'm sure you are, too.
Love that movie. Yeah. I've got the Ford Coupe, the yellow one that Harrison Ford drove in the movie. I've got a model of it. I don't have the car.
Oh,
I've got a model of it. No. I wonder where that car is today. I wonder who's got that. If I'm going to go great engine, I'm going to go the Colombo Ferrari V12. Yeah, I'm going there. 1958, 57. And
I agree. I have that engine in a 68 Ferrari that I own. It's a great engine. It's got no low end torque. I mean, you got to rev the crap out of that thing to get any power. It only, in 4.4 liters, it only makes 280 horsepower on the dyno.
Yeah.
We just rebuilt the motor and we put it on the dyno.
Wait.
Great motor, but
stop right there. You've got a 67. Okay, a 67 what?
I have a 68 365 GT. It's the big 2+2. I think it's the most beautiful car they ever made.
I love that. You've got to be kidding me. Yeah, and you know what?
It's not fast by today's standards, but it's a beautiful handling and even it was the first Ferrari with road Ferrari, I believe, with independent rear suspension and power steering. And that power steering, you barely even feel it.
And nothing, the lifters, the cams, the sound, the chains of that engine. It's like I'm a big watch collector, all automatic watches. I've got a lot of them. And it's the same thing. It's that mechanical clanking, glorious orchestration that happens. Nothing sounds like that. And
until the oil warms up, you can hear the valve train clattering away.
Oh, I love it. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, John Warner IV. What a great conversation. Whew. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network, KJCR, and the UNX Network. Race Hobbs. I'll be right back.
half of the metal guard on jimmychurchradio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, VX.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to getthet.com. That's getthet.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to getthet.com. That's getthet.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to getthet.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthet.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard. Available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit unitedgoldgroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John Warner IV. I had to get some car talk in. And watching the chat room, I think everybody agrees. Little car talk. Little car talk. And you know what? I left out the Ford 289 still. I think that might be the best engine ever all around. It's I'm just
no.
I love the car.
I had a 67 Shelby GT500 Mustang and I had the 427 side oiler with aluminum heads, 2 4-barrels. Oh God, it had a 600 lift cam with 2 twin Hollies. I mean, that thing had 700 horsepower. But you're right. As a small block in the 60s, the 289 was a sweet engine.
Yeah,
Le Mans. I mean, the 427 and the 289.
That was my first car, and I remember my dad had a friend, and I'm in high school, right? I just graduated high school, and he goes, "I got a friend that's got a Mustang for sale." And I bought a 1966 fastback 289 4-speed. I bought that car for like $250 or something, $400, and that began my appreciation for the small block and what that car was. It was just incredible. And to this day, I'm just a Ford guy. You know,
I am too, kind of a Ford guy. You know, I had a girlfriend who had a Mustang in college. Not sure if I like the girl or the car better.
Fair enough.
I really like your car.
Fair enough. Now, I want to, we're going to go from cars to what I believe.
Oh, wait, can I interject 1 second?
Sure, if it's about cars.
Right, trivia question.
Sure.
What is the first, this is an ET technology, apparently, fiber optics.
Okay.
Back engineered. So what was the first car to incorporate, American car, to incorporate fiber optics?
Was it Chrysler? Was it the Maserati LeBaron convertible?
No. 1968 Corvette had 3 warning lights near the gear shifter.
Shut up. Is that true?
Yeah.
Now that I didn't know.
It was the first car to have that. Remember the astronauts got Corvettes and stuff? I think someone in the, I don't know where, they were like, let's put some fiber optics in those cars. And GM was like, what are we going to do with this stuff? You know, and they're like, well, let's make warning lights out of them, you know.
Yeah, I think all of those astronauts had one, too, as well. I brought up the Chrysler Maserati because they put in too much gizmos in that car. Right, it was ahead of its time, but it just didn't work. Right,
and it was ugly,
and it was ugly.
You can't sell ugly cars. I don't care if they have 1,000 horsepower. They're
right.
Really hard to sell.
I want to talk about the secrecy of a space program that probably is going on right now, and how it can be kept secret from the public eye. And I remind the audience constantly of the X-37B. And for the X-37B to fly and to have a mission, you've got engineers, pilots, logistics, support team, ground team, space crew. And we know nothing about that program. And they have kept the lid on it. And if that is evidence of a secret space program, you have to ask yourself what else is going on that we don't know about if the X-37B exists. Do you think that there's a parallel program going on with NASA and with JPL and with the government that the public doesn't know about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, our space program started in the 40s, White Sands Missile Base. I mean, you know, sure, there were ET craft crashing here and there, but that's going to take a long time to back engineer and get somebody to fly. But by all accounts, by the 57, 55, we had stuff flying. Apparently, the Germans had stuff flying first. You know, the overflight of Washington, D.C. in 1952, you can still bring up the Washington Post headline. The word is those were German. So, you know, yes, we've had a secret space program. There's no doubt about it. The question is, how big is it? And it goes from mild to wild. And, you know, I'm at the end of the rail line. It's like, bigger the better. You know? Mm-hmm. I think, you know, given William Tompkins' book and the fact that, you know, my father and I did a FOIA request on Admiral Rico Boda, whom he mentioned. And the Navy sent us one page. And my dad said, they scrubbed this guy from history. And William Tompkins, in his book, he posts a picture of some admirals that helped him.
That's right.
Now, my O&I friends, they were like, well, I don't know about William Tompkins, but two or three of those admirals, they knew them, and they said they would not be involved with William Tompkins unless he was legit, and let their pictures be put in there. So that's what I just want to put that in, because William Tompkins lays out a big story about our secret space program, and I think there's a lot of validity to it. You know, people can laugh at certain stories that sound ridiculous, you know, Nazis, UFOs, and aliens and all that stuff. It does sound ridiculous until you do the big picture historical homework on it, and then it sounds a lot less ridiculous. It sounds very plausible, even though it's not in most people's reality. You know, as you know, in America, I'd say 97%, I don't know, they just don't care. Now, my friends are like, I'm sure you're telling the truth, but I just don't care. Ignorance is bliss. And they're distracted with a million things on YouTube and games and virtual reality and TV, Netflix, you know, and who cares? You know, one friend of mine said, I don't care if the Klingons invade and Star Trek's real. You know, I've got a job to do, and I've got, you know, mow the backyard and, you know, clean my car. You know, they just, you know, so a lot of people just don't care about this. But so it's easier than people think to hide huge secrets. You know, the Germans learned you just hide things in plain sight. You know, I mean, all these UFOs flying around, you know, no one in the government or, you know, the Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon, they never mentioned the millions. I think it's in the millions of reports by civilian and military pilots. Now, recently, Chris Mellon came out, you know, oh, military pilots, the government's not listening to them. Well, that was news 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm trying to say. They're just rehashing old techniques to a public that is slowly waking up, and they are, especially young people.
Now, if we go back, and because of your political upbringing and lifestyle, I'm urban legend. I'm going to go with that. Let's go with urban legend in the UFO community about Eisenhower and treaties. You could even mention like Project Serpo. And interaction with extraterrestrials that goes back a long ways. And there has been not only sharing of information, but a mutual cooperation that has gone on for years. How much now Eisenhower, being a general and of course a president, had a unique position of knowledge of the Department of Defense and their knowledge, of course, and then the knowledge that you acquire as president. How much of that is based in reality? And would that treaty and that cooperation be passed on from administration to administration, all the way through to Obama and Trump and Clinton?
Well, I'll quote my dad. And he and I had a big discussion about presidential elections and how corrupt they are. And he said, look, they are transient custodians of the status quo. And they're, you know, and I'm not the first one to say it, Greer and everybody else said it too, you know, they're middle managers. Some are read into some of the UFO file, some aren't. All have their arms twisted, and they all have a gun to their head, either physically or, you know, in, you know, whatever. And so they're very compromised individuals. They don't have all this power that people think they do. The commander-in-chief, you know, the Navy and the Marines, they answer to the Constitution. You know, we live in a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Democracy is mob rule. You know, it's like, so the Navy and Marines, that's another reason my dad was very keen. He was, you know, a Marine and a naval serviceman, World War II and Korea, you know, and they are beholden to the Constitution, which represents the American people. The Army and the Air Force and probably the Space Force are beholden to a commander-in-chief. And so that's a difference. I believe that Eisenhower was given a Hobson's choice in the Greada Treaty in the 50s. I think the word is there were 3 ET groups. There's been a lot of deception and skullduggery probably forever, thousands of years. There's a lot of positive ETs, but a lot of the negative ones, they pose as positive. And they're like, why don't we help you with your spirituality, or it's a choice and you can take the weapons. I don't think Ike had a choice in any of the three groups. I think they were all in cahoots together. There's some, esoteric evidence for that suggests that. And so I think that's what happens. And that's why he made his speech before Kennedy was sworn into office about the military-industrial complex, because he knew Allen Dulles and probably my grandfather and Rockefeller and a bunch of those guys, they were either on MJ-12 in the late 50s or they were close to it. And they were like, we rule the roost because we have all the bankers. And that's what the Mellon family is. We're a banking family.
Mm-hmm.
They had the money, they had the power, they could buy and sell congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill. And here comes a president who says, I'm going to come to Area 51, Groom Lake, with the First Army out of Colorado, and I'm going to shut this thing down. And there's a document that says so. I believe it. And they were like, okay, we'll give you a thin report. And for some reason, Ike had a couple strokes. People forget that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay, chain of command is restored. I'm okay with it. But then I think he briefed Kennedy. Remember, Kennedy was ONI in World War II under Forrestal. So he was read in on the UFO file. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Just like my grandfather and Allen Dulles, they were all read in, all those guys. So he knew all throughout his young life as a congressman and a senator, he knew his part of the UFO file. And that's part of the reason he was killed. It was a million reasons. But, the Nazi aerospace scientists, in Huntsville and everywhere else, they wanted Kennedy dead too, because they didn't want cooperation with the Russians. They hated the Russians, the Nazis. And they didn't want the UFO file getting out, any part of it. And, you've got the Texas oil men and LBJ and James Angleton and Allen Dulles. It's who didn't want to kill Kennedy is the better question.
Well, when the one line in one of his speeches, to this day, I'm just like, dude, what are you saying? When he said, secret societies and secret handshakes, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, you don't need to go there. And he was obviously against the system. And there's too many parts in the system that you're never going to break. And they cooperate with each other, which takes me to this. We can look at, the gimbal, the go fast, and the tic-tac videos as one thing. But there is so much talk about the Holloman Air Force Base film, which is purported to exist. We have film from Roswell that is purported to exist. And I have no idea how many thousands of gun camera footage that the military is in possession of. But if disclosure happens, do you expect like the Holloman, reels of film to be presented to the public?
Maybe some of that. I mean, I've heard there's millions of hours of footage.
Sure.
And I've talked to pilots who said this tic-tac thing is ridiculous. We've been sighting UFOs, our gun cameras, since, Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's nonsense. And then, of course, World War II, the Foo Fighters. I think where we're headed is this kind of disclosure that's very favorable to the military-industrial complex. You're going to live this, have electric Tesla cars and hoverboards and, this great technology. But, listen to Elon Musk and put a chip, behind your ear, and they're going to, the whole world is fascist. I mean, every country, you mess with the police or with the government in any country, you're going to end up dead or in jail for the rest of your life. This secrecy is so vast and so powerful. It is so toxic for the world and for America. I want to mention one thing before, because we were on the last few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, Paul Mellon, was OSS in World War II. I've been told throughout the decades by people, close to my dad and military people, they're like, you realize the Mellon family, there's only about 130 of us alive at any given time. We're not a big family, but there's been 40 Mellons or more including my grandfather and Chris Mellon, in the military intelligence, or they call it civilian, but CIA is its own entity. That's a lot for a small family. So when Chris Mellon came out in 2017, that was not a happenstance. They just didn't call him out of retirement. When was he, 60 back then, 61? There's a reason they picked a Mellon. And I want your listeners to know that, because our family has been in deep yogurt with the national security state going back to World War II. And, we have nothing but robber barons and other people. And yes, we have had a lot of philanthropy, and there's the National Gallery of Art, and my grandfather donated the East Wing, but these are halos to put over people's heads. Remember our duality. All human beings, we have this duality of it. You can spend your life doing things that are not good for the American people, but is good for big business and banks and secrecy in the military. But then, donate an art museum because you want the public to see vast art collections. It's a good thing to do. Everyone's like, not evil and like Hitler and everything. It's just like, I'm a conservative hawk, and I toe the line of secrecy, but I'm going to do this really nice thing on the side, but it's also kind of a distraction. Everyone's like, oh, your grandfather was so generous. And I'm like, you don't know what he was like. I mean, the guy was almost a Nazi, so I want to make that very clear that this Mellon thing, the Mellon family is very quiet until now. And that's when Chris came out. And I, after 4 years of trying to reach out and help him and everything like that, and I knew we were going separate ways. And now I am. These committee of 300 families, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Morgans, these 300 families, there's 95% of them have no idea what's going on. And the 5% that do, they're not talking about it. As far as I know, I'm the only one to come forward with the alternative view of this alternative from the U.S. military, CIA, or the U.S. government. I mean, I'm just infurious.
Now,
killing us.
Well, and staying on that, in our brief few minutes that we have left, the narrative that I have seen repeated over the last 4 years is threat. And it's played out in the media. It's come from the Pentagon spokespeople. It's there. It's Senate Intelligence Committee. Threat. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen any plasma weapons shooting up cities, right? I haven't seen, not to say that there is a negative ETs. There's negative everything. But I haven't seen that. Why would they take that presentation? Is it for money? Is it for budgeting? Why put the threat label on UAPs and UFOs?
Because it's business. Remember that technology is in our medical, ultrasound and everything, all this ET back engineered technology, it's all through our society. You and I are talking on laptops and through Zoom and everything. This is all productized. So it's big business, it's big medical, it's big pharma, and, there's no money to be made off of a public that's healthy, cancer. They have med beds that can cure cancer. I'm absolutely sure of that. And Chris and I agreed on that one thing, that the top secret med beds should be let out, but they're going to give us, version 1, whereas, on the inside, they have version 1000. And so, at the top of society, these royals, I've met the Queen 3 times. These people, money is meaningless to them. They have trillions. The committee of 300 families, what are we collectively worth in the United States? Trillions. Mm-hmm. It's meaningless. And so it's about control, power, and secrecy. It's the ultra, aphrodisiac, power and secrecy together. There's definitely ET at the mix. You can. I've talked to military people, and they say, yeah, ET's in charge. If you go all the way to the top, ET is in charge. And it's obvious we've been scammed and enslaved, and alcohol, religion, all this stuff. Money, banks, and the debt slavery. It's just not freedom at all. Americans are sort of free range debt slaves, and we're given more freedoms, but not really. We can't go to Area 51. Look at those people who tried to storm Area 51. They would have been slaughtered.
I almost drove out there over the weekend, and I thought about it on Friday morning. I was just gonna jump in my Jeep and go to the gates, and I actually had that planned. And the only reason why it didn't happen was Halloween. I had to be back here for some stuff yesterday. But I almost went to Area 51. Let me ask you another question, though. Recently, the intelligence budget was passed. And in that, there were 5 or 6 breakouts about the UAP task force and it being renamed and what it was going to do and the scheduling of that. There were a couple of very interesting paragraphs, and it was the words that were used, John. And one of them was, I couldn't believe they said this, that in the event of a crashed UAP, that the debris and the crash would be collected and reported, right? That's in the budget. Could you ever?
Odd.
Yeah. Can you?
That's Capitol Hill for you. It is very odd. I don't know why, but if I had to make an educated guess, it's all about perception management. And so what I think they would do is they get an unmanned UAP out there, and they crash it. And, they make a big stink on it, and CNN, news media is all in cahoots with the deep state. We don't have a free press. And, and they'll say, look, it's Lockheed Martin, it's classified, but look, there's no one in it. There's no ET. Go back to school, go back to work, don't worry about it. And so that's my guess. Once you're a conspiracy researcher, you're just dyed. Your wool is dyed. And, it just makes sense to me that they'll stick to this narrative, but everything that's allowed inside that, the UAP task force book, you could do anything you want in that as long as it doesn't stray into other, because they're distracting you from other projects. It's like, wait, what's that 5-mile long silver cigar thing coming over LA? And it's like, don't worry about that. Keep your mind on CNN and the UAP task force, And so it's all about perception management. Look over here. You light a trash can on fire at a party. Where are all eyes going to be? On the trash can. You should be looking in the opposite direction. An old intelligence guy told me that. He's like, oh yeah, man. They'll let out something on the news and everything, distract everyone. You should be looking over here, in West Texas. What's that? Giant purple, glowing ball, over Dallas. Oh, that's not important, But Marco Rubio wants to talk about UAPs. And another person told me, a military person told me, they don't give a shit about all of us talking about little gray men, the grays or whatever, and crashed UFOs. It's everything they've kept secret in the national security state, the dirty laundry. That's what they want us to distract you from. All the crap I'm talking about. I don't have a lot of credibility, but it makes sense to me after a lifetime of being exposed to it. They're this whole thing, UAP and Chris Mellon and Marco Rubio and all that, Harry Reid and all that stuff. That's all within a very narrow playbook, and they're sticking to that. It's like, look over here, look, the trash can's on fire. Don't look over there. And don't listen to Catherine Ostafist or, the other researchers in the UFO field who are talking about all this dirty laundry, the bank fraud. And, the American people are going to be pissed when they find out that I don't know, 100 trillion has been stolen from them since 1950.
Well, they're really going to be upset if they find out that we've had free energy technology in our possession for 70 years.
Yeah, and pollution.
Right, no pollution, starving.
No one needs to starve on this planet. That's all. Somebody, somewhere, Jim Marrs said it. I'm going to quote him. He says, if there's a country starving and dying, genocide or whatever, there's probably a secret round table, a secret society somewhere who wants it that way.
Yeah.
That's sad, but that's the truth of our world.
Yeah, he said that on the show a few times, and I miss him.
I miss him too. He's a very plain talker. I try to talk plainly like he does. He had a great Southern drawl. I love it. But he said that, and it's just there's no truer words spoken. The injustice, inequality, poverty of this world is all by design. 20 years ago, I wasn't sure, but now I'm absolutely sure.
Now, do you think this is something I meant to get to way earlier in the show? Do you think that this conversation that is happening right now out of Washington is because they know of something that is about to happen? I don't know what that about to happen is. Could be a lot of different things, but that they're trying to get out in front of it because it's not in their control. And they know this, so they need this conversation to be happening globally.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the proverbial head. Whether or not it's going to be, some ET group, I've heard